There's this huge paradox at the heart of every single luxury brand. How do you get bigger and sell more stuff without losing that exclusive vibe that makes people want you in the first place? It's a massive challenge. And honestly, nobody's played this game better than Dior. So let's dive into what is basically a masterclass in brand strategy.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with that big problem, the luxury paradox. Then we'll get into Dior's secret weapon, its unbreakable anchor. From there, we'll see how they stretched all the way from perfume to sneakers and what they do now to protect themselves with a modern safety net. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the big picture, the art of elasticity.
All right, first up, the luxury paradox. I mean, the subtitle kind of says it all, right? How to be everywhere and exclusive at the same time. This is the puzzle that has kept luxury execs up at night for decades. You want to be a household name, but if you are, does that mean you're not special anymore?
And that's really the billion-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. If you're too exclusive, your business just can't grow. You hit a ceiling. But if you become too accessible, you lose that magic, that mystique. And then are you even a luxury brand anymore? It's this incredibly delicate tightrope walk between being desired and being available.
So the industry has a name for this whole balancing act. It's called brand stretching. And I want you to really picture this. Think of a brand's prestige as an elastic band. You can stretch it, right? You can pull it into new products, maybe different price points to reach more people. But if you stretch it just a little too far, or you do it too fast, snap. That band breaks. And trust me, once that prestige is gone, getting it back is next to impossible.
So the big question is, how do you stretch without snapping that band? Well, that leads us right into our second section, Dior's unbreakable anchor. See, before you can even think about stretching, you have to have something incredibly strong and solid to stretch from. For Dior, that anchor was forged all the way back in 1947. You really have to understand the context here to get why this was so huge. Picture it. It's Paris, 1947. The world is just coming out of a devastating war. Everything is about austerity, rationing, making do, and then, out of nowhere, Christian Dior drops his first collection. We're talking meters and meters of the most beautiful fabric, creating these soft shoulders, tiny waists, and huge flowing skirts. It was so shocking, so new, it was immediately called the new look. This wasn't just fashion, it was a cultural lightning bolt. And that moment became the brand's anchor forever.
So what did that moment really establish? It's what we'd call Dior's core DNA, and it really boils down to three things. First, this idea of radical femininity. Second, an incredible focus on architectural tailoring. The structure of the clothes was key. And finally, Christian Dior's personal obsession with flowers and gardens. These three pillars, everything the brand does, even now, has to tie back to them in some way. Okay, so with that super strong anchor locked in, Dior was finally ready to start stretching. And that brings us to section 3, from perfume to sneakers. We're about to see how their strategy grew and changed over the decades. Dior's playbook really has two major moves, and this lays them out perfectly. The first one is what we call a vertical stretch. This happened right at the beginning in 1947 with Miss Dior Perfume. The idea was simple. Move down the price ladder a bit. Give people who dreamed of Dior an affordable way in. Now fast forward to today and you have the horizontal stretch. This is way more radical. This is about moving into completely different worlds, like streetwear and sneakers, stuff that seems a million miles away from a Parisian couture salon. And the genius of that first stretch into perfume, it felt so right, so natural. It wasn't some random cash grab, it was part of the vision from the very start. Christian Dior himself actually said, perfume is the finishing touch of a dress. See, he didn't see it as a separate thing. It was part of the total look. It was a way for anyone who couldn't afford the dress to still own a little piece of that dream, a piece of that elegance, right there in a bottle. Okay, but how on earth did they pull off that much riskier move into sneakers? I mean, that's a huge leap. Well, they didn't just slap a logo on a shoe and call it a day. No way. They completely infused the sneaker with their own DNA. Let's take the Air Jordan collab. It was manufactured in Italy, just like their other leather goods. It used super high-quality leather. It was painted in their iconic Dior gray. And get this, each pair was inspected with the same level of care as one of their suits. So you see what they did. They didn't come down to the sneakers level. They pulled the sneaker up to theirs. But stretching into all these different worlds, it puts a ton of pressure on that elastic band we talked about. So it raises a really important question. how do they stop it from snapping? That's what we're digging into next in Section 4, the modern safety net. Yeah, this is the puzzle right here, in plain sight. You can walk into a store and buy a $40 Dior lipstick, and in that same universe, someone else is buying a $5,000 handbag. How is that possible? How can both of those things exist under the same name without the cheap one making the expensive one feel, well, less special? It seems like it should be a total mess, but Dior has built this really clever system to make sure it all works. And a massive piece of that system is what you could call their star system. It is incredibly precise. Just look at this breakdown. You've got Johnny Depp, who sells the Sauvage fragrance to a huge, rugged, mass-market audience, and at the exact same time, you've got K-pop megastars like Jisoo from Blackpink and Jimin from BTS, who are all about connecting with Gen Z and global youth culture. It's brilliant, right? Each star is talking to a totally different tribe about a totally different product. The messages never get tangled up. It's not just about who is selling the product, though. It's also about where you experience the brand itself. And this is where Dior has become a master of experiential luxury. Think about the Dior cafes or the Dior spas you see popping up. They're creating these beautiful, aspirational spaces. Look, you might not be able to drop 10 grand on a dress, but you can probably afford a Dior cappuccino. You can take a photo, post it online, and for a moment, you're part of that world. It's a genius, low-cost way to get people in the door and generate a mountain of free social media marketing. Okay, let's bring this all home. Our final section, Section 5, is the art of elasticity. This is really the core lesson, the big takeaway from Dior's incredible brand strategy. So here it is, the secret sauce, the Dior blueprint. They don't water down their brand to fit into a new box. They do the complete opposite. They take that new category, doesn't matter if it's a sneaker, a face cream, whatever, and they elevate it. How? By injecting it with that core DNA we talked about, the DNA from 1947. So they're not just making a Dior sneaker. They're making a sneaker the Dior way. There's a huge difference. When you step back, what you see is that Dior has truly mastered an almost impossible trick. They've stretched themselves to be a brand for skaters, for serious businessmen, for teenagers, all at the same time. But, and this is the big final thought, it leaves us with one critical question. In a world that's changing faster than ever, where culture is constantly shifting, how long can that anchor, that center that was set over 75 years ago, really hold? That is the question for the next chapter of Dior's story.